it's here for you.
Hi, my dear family. Today we are going to be looking at potentially the most important aspect of October 2025, and that's Jupiter and Chiron square. Well, this is going to be a first of a series of three squares that are going to be taking place. Now, Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer, Chiron is in the sign of Aries. We're going to have two squares here, and then we are going to be experiencing squares once Jupiter moves into the sign of Leo and Chiron moves into the sign of Taurus. Now, this video works extremely well if you had listened to the video connected to Jupiter in Leo, and I made a separate one about Chiron in Taurus as well. So you might want to be listening to those videos because that's actually going to be super important to understand how those dynamics are playing out. But today I'm trying to bring them together. I've also made a video about Pluto and Jupiter opposition as well, because basically we're doing the 2026 series, and then you are going to be receiving approximately 10 more videos about 2026 so that you can be fully prepared. You know, you have to plan this out. Astrology is all about navigating your life to the best possible, you know, to bring the best possible results of those. So make sure that you follow the channel, you like the video, you ring the notification bell, and all those lovely things. Share it with others. Firstly, because I would like to grow my channel. Secondly, because potentially you can benefit from it as well. Now, if you would like to get a little bit more personal, then I have prepared a 2.5 hour video for each rising sign, which is available for purchase on my website, AstroViktor.com. And also, I'm offering weekly forecasts as well. Each weekly forecast is about 25 minutes long, depending on the week, how busy it is. And in those videos, I cover the asteroids as well, the less known asteroids, also the movement of them, the big major aspects, and so on. So you get a lot of guidance through those videos, in my opinion. So if you are interested, you can check that out too. But let's get going with this upcoming Jupiter and Chiron square, and I want to give you the dates first. We're going to have one square happening on the October 23rd, 2025. Then we're going to have one on December 21st, 2025 as well. And then we're going to have one on July 1st, 2026, and then we are not going to be experiencing a square until March 6, 2033. So therefore, we're going to have three squares, and I'm going to try to play or highlight how the development of this square might be happening. Trust me, this is a super important square because next year, basically, we're going to have a T-square configuration happening between Pluto, Chiron, and Jupiter. So the pivotal, like the peak of these are just started to build up. Firstly, let's just get going. Oh, I wanted to give you the degrees as well, so we get the technical bits out of the way. The very first square is going to be happening on 24°. So 24° Aries and 24° of Cancer. If you've got any planets, I would say around 22 to 26° of the cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, then this video is actually super important for you. So that's the very first square. The next square, which is taking place on the 21st of December 2025, well, that is going to be taking place on 22° of Aries to 22° of Cancer. And then the third square, which is only going to be taking place, like I said, next year, July 1st, 2026, but that is going to be happening on 0° of Taurus to 0° of Leo. Okay, so let's have a look at what is happening. We've got a core conflict here because the two planets, or Chiron is not really a planet, but hey, the two planets are in a square. And the square is a 90-degree angle, which represents tension, conflict, but also it wants to kick our butts to get going, to kind of like make a decision. So Chiron in the sign of Aries, Chiron represents our deepest wounds, the place where we feel unhealed, in a way incomplete. I mean, Chiron is often referred to as the wounded healer because through confronting our own pain, we gain the wisdom, the compassion to help others with similar struggles as well. Meaning that, let's say I'm a crippled person with Chiron. Chiron represents the wheelchair users, by the way. And, we shouldn't be getting bogged down with, with being helpless, but we need to gain the experience, the wisdom to be able to help others as well. Now, Aries is the sign of the self, the initiation, the courage, our kind of like the warrior within us. So the wound is somehow related to the core self, being aware of who we are, who we want to be, making sure that somehow we are independent, we have got the courage potentially to stand up for ourselves, and being seen for who we are. We don't need to be hiding anymore. And of course, the wound is related to all this. So there is a deep seated feeling of not being able to belong. What if I'm going to be an outsider? What if having a core part of my identity rejected or ridiculed by others? Now, Jupiter is the magnifying glass. So, Jupiter is the planet of expansion, growth, beliefs, and wisdom. It magnifies whatever it touches. So, Cancer is the sign of home, family, roots, emotional security, and also the nurturing element as well. So, Jupiter tries to magnify, to expand these themes. So it's a time of growth and blessings in a way related to family, home life, emotional well-being, a sense of belonging, all those type of lovely things. But Cancer has got a super huge emotional nature to it. So negatively speaking, Jupiter can make us hypersensitive also if we are getting ridiculed or rejected, for example, with this square. So we've got the initial square, like I said, happening on 24-degree. And, this initial contact is going to start to bring the issue to the surface. And maybe it's a desire between to assert your independence and the family expectations, for example. So the family wants you, for example, to get married, and then Chiron is like, no, I don't want to get married. That's not necessarily my problem, or not my goal, but how can I say no to my parents? And also, Aries is connected with identity, like I said, but Cancer is connected to security. Especially, it's the inner peace type of sign. So your sense of self-worth or identity may feel threatened by a situation that should have promised security and growth for us. Let's imagine that it's a career opportunity that offers a sense of stability, but maybe you have to be compromising your own core values. So it's a tug of war. What am I going to do with that? Am I going to go for this job because it offers me, let's say, a lot of money? Or am I just going to go with my own integrity? And of course, this square is going to emphasize the emotional wounds. It's a past emotional wound, most likely related to childhood, or a family might, these family issues might somehow resurface, but in a bigger way. And we're going to have to be able to find solutions for that. And Jupiter is magnifying the pain as well. However, it also gives us the opportunity to heal, especially if you're willing to confront these issues. Then we are going to be experiencing the second square, which is on 22-degree. And the second square would be more of a refinement of that initial contact or conflict that is happening between these two planets. It's pretty much the same issue, but maybe from a different angle. So this is going to ask us to revisit the lessons from the first square and try to find a different approach to it. And most likely you have already a better understanding of the root of the problem. And now maybe you are ready to kind of work it out with a more wider perspective. And so therefore, in this square, we reevaluate. We are asked to re-examine our beliefs and assumptions you heard about your personal wounds, even about who you are, or even the past, how you used to do things in the past, because Cancer represents the past. And maybe this is a time when you realize that the way you have been trying to heal isn't working, and we need a new approach to it. I mean, Jupiter, for example, can bring you a mentor, a therapist, a new belief system, or maybe just a book that is going to help you work through these chironic wounds. Maybe this is giving you the chance to move from a kind of like a place of isolation to, a place of like more wisdom. And maybe this square is also giving you the opportunity to forgive yourself. I mean, we have all made mistakes in the past, and Chiron has got a tendency to kind of think of them as a failure. So, of course, the expansive nature of Jupiter can help you not only to put the pain in a larger context and to find a way to release them, but also we can be so afraid and in a way paralyzed that we are going to be making the same mistake that we are not ready to get going. And that's the whole idea around Aries, right? That we have to be able to get going. Now, also, I would like to mention that because this is the very first square between these two planets, this is the first phase, we call it as an opening square in astrology. The initial seeds got planted somewhere back in 2022-23 when Jupiter and Chiron made a conjunction in Aries. So you might also want to revisit that period of time as well. What went down in your life, or what went down politically speaking, for example, if we are talking about the global levels. Because maybe this is going to be something that, like, let's say you started a new fitness routine back in 2022. And now this is a time for adjustment. Seeing, for example, with Jupiter, I'm not growing, or I haven't grown as much as I would have liked to. So now I'm going to have to adjust my diet plan. Let's say if one of these are falling into your sixth house. So therefore, Chiron or Jupiter falling into sixth house, or basically you have got a Aries cusp on the sixth house, because then that was the initial seed. So this is how you can kind of like try to put them together. And then we're going to have the third square, which is 0 degree of Taurus to 0 degree of Leo, and that's the final square. And this is the reason why you might want to be listening to that video I made about Chiron in Taurus, because I had given you quite a detailed breakdown there. But, Taurus is about values, resources, security, your physical body. The one shifts to these themes. But the first square happens in Aries and Cancer. So that's something to do with feeling good about who you are, feeling good in your own skin. And once Chiron moves into the sign of Taurus, maybe you're going to start working a lot more on your own self-worth, or maybe you have started, let's say, a business venture with the Aries cusp, and then now you have got the ability to kind of provide security and finances for yourself as well. And Jupiter will be moving into the sign of Leo, which is about self-expression, creativity, leadership. Jupiter will expand the themes there, promising growth through creativity, or promising growth through stepping into the limelight, the spotlight. Without that, this is not going to be happening. So I think the final square is going to be talking to us about having to rebuild our self-worth, often from ground up, actually, based on whether the lessons have been learned from the previous squares or not. Because if we haven't, the final square is kind of like going to empty your pockets, for example, or publicly you are going to be shamed or ridiculed. So these are the initial squares that you must be able to focus on. Do not postpone anything. Yes, the final square is going to ask you to find your creative voice as well, of course, So you're going to have to be able to push yourself towards a creative outlet, which is going to allow you um, to express your true self, even though you feel vulnerable, for example. And I think also I tend to look at Chiron as a gift. So this is also about a unique gift as well. And especially the third square is going to talk to you about having to embrace those unique gifts. Uh, it doesn't only talk to you about having to confront the pain of not being good enough, but to embrace your unique value and share your gifts with the world. So, by the way, the last, like I said, the conjunction happened, I think, March 2023, to be precise. And that conjunction was very much about highlighting, actually, in a way, what is wrong with us. That was all about a healing journey related to identity, self-worth, and your personal courage. Somehow the wound around that time got illuminated, and we potentially had to start a healing with a new perspective, and we had to become courageous, and we had to be just going after something that we truly wanted. So you have to be right now reflecting on what was happening in your life around May 2023. Did you realize any type of like issues? Did you feel this surge of courage to face a long-standing fear, for example? Or did you start a new personal project? Or what stories potentially have you been telling yourself since about your own self-worth and identity? Are you telling yourself that I'm not worthy for love, for example, or oh, there is no point in trying anything new because AI will do it, or whatever kind of like we feed the mind with, because you're gonna have to experience a certain type of an aha moment right now, which is going to challenge these deeply held beliefs about who you are. Or potentially there might have been a family conflict or a situation at home that triggered a feeling of not belonging. And let's say you wanted to relocate. And then maybe this square is going to talk to you about, I'm not too sure if this relocation was something that I actually kind of like, wanted to. So the squares are called to actions. The first square is the conflict between your newly activated sense of self and the needs of your emotional security or home life or family life as well. And imagine this square as being a pressure cooker. So it is going to force you to ask yourself certain type of questions, such as how can I be my authentic self? How can I make myself feel safe? And what do I want to belong to, basically? Squares are not meant to be passive. They are actually call to action, right? Especially when Aries is involved. Aries is pushing you to be confrontational. Basically, it says that your birthright is to be able to punch people in the face when it's needed. So when putting these together, 2023, there was this new planted like seeds of courage, and you had to be healing those, and now expect certain type of challenging situation that are going to be forcing you to kind of water those seeds, to confront the reality, and all the ways of finding security in your life is basically not working anymore. It has to be replaced with something. I mean, this is also a collective wound as well within the world. And of course, Aries is the sign of wars, and Cancer is all about security and pretty much the nation. So this square actually can indicate that a war that might be intensifying, or kind of like a lot of, we say in my language that the dust of the gun is floating in the air. I'm not too sure if we say that in English, but do let me know in the comment box below. Um, Basically, it means that you can smell, the gun kind of shots about to be happening in the air. That's what it means. So, um, it can intensify those, or it's the realization that war is actually not working. Like we have been doing it for a long time and then it has never reached anything that we truly have wanted. So what if we approached it from a different perspective? I mean, if it's very much of the negative one, this on a global level, it would indicate conflicts over resources, home environment, as well as lands. I mean, I can actually imagine the home environment. I have seen more and more countries that people are demonstrating. For example, in Morocco, there is a huge one right now due to the medical fields and the educations are pretty much ignored. And the response of the army and the police forces are actually super shocking. But I also have seen in other countries as well where people are protesting because they are unable to buy properties due to the investors and the foreigners bringing their money into the country, which is, of course, pushing up the prices of the properties. And like, if I'm not mistaken, Spain this year introduced a new initiatives where if you are a foreigner and not member of the EU, then you have to pay 100% tax on the initial purchase. Yeah, so I can imagine conflicts over home, land, resources. Even it could be food and territory related stuff as well. Because Cancer and Leo elements are very much about the nation's identity. So, do we feel secure about who we are, our religious beliefs, and so forth? So, therefore, we might be experiencing certain type of new conflicts over borders, territorial disputes, or even refugee crisis situations also. I mean, and on a global level, this is very much of a contradiction, really, because on one hand, Jupiter in Cancer wants to expand compassion, nurture communities, looking after the families. It's kind of like wanting to create this global family, basically. And then we've got the other hand, or the other side of the coin, which is Chiron in Aries, who is very much insisting on self preservation and independent actions. So, this is the conflict here. What am I going to do? How much am I going to be helping, let's say, my sisters and brothers when I'm also struggling to a certain extent? So, therefore, there could be a lot of debate about humanitarian aid, international alliances, or how nations are prioritizing their own security. I actually, I'm sure it's not a shock to anyone, but, there is a bigger military, awareness right now. And I've just seen recently a video how much money Poland is investing into military. Apparently, their GDP, like 4 to 6% of their GDP, goes towards military, while other European members of EU are not even hitting 0.5%. And yeah, anyway, I don't want to get into politics, but I can imagine something around this as well, around military awareness and the GDP of those would go, I think the European law says that it has to be 2% on top of my head, but I might be wrong, so I'm not too sure on that. And obviously, the emotional wounds could be increased as well in the world, where it's kind of like a national traumatic experience. And most likely, this is an old, unhealed wound related to, let's say, a past war, a historical injustice, or a collective sense of shame, for example. And then this pain is brought to surface. And unfortunately, with Chiron, we might want to kind of fight against that, or in a way, we want justice also. So, but the shift between Chiron and Aries moving into the next sign also shows or indicates a new collective identity as well. So, if we were able to kind of like create security and stuff like that in the initial squares, then actually it would indicate certain nations would be blooming or they would discover certain type of resources or they would just get stronger. And globally, this could even indicate, of course, economic insecurities as well, or issues with food supply chains or the health of the planets. And then that gets to become kind of like the center or tension of 2026-27, basically. So it really depends, going back to the personal level, it really depends on what you do with this square. And you need to be super like not careful, but you need to be super like aware of it. I would also would like you to think about, because actually Mercury formed the T-square with Jupiter and Chiron. Well, it pretty much was within all from the 27th of September onwards, but it peaks somewhere around the 2nd of October, and it's going to last until the 8th of October overall. So it's worth having a look at what is going on in the world right now, because potentially this might be a news, for example, that will kind of get escalated until then. And Mercury is in the sign of Libra. So what I'm guessing is that the 20 like point stuff that Trump came up with, the peace plan, I think that's what he's going to talk about, and then we're going to see something within those in the next 1 year. But anyway, going back to this kind of like T-square, um, somehow the mind is focused now on healing or sharing the wisdom. And in a way, this is going to talk to us about, we are getting to know a piece of information, we are learning about something, or we are ready to share our wisdom with others. So what's also very interesting is that even though uh, um, even though Pluto is in a different sign, it's an out of sign ground cross, but Mercury moves a little bit forward and then it's activating Pluto as well at the same time. So, of course, there's a lot of psychological themes here, which on one hand indicates that we have to be able to go through a certain type of a healing of trauma. So you might want to be choosing certain type of healing techniques, for example, which might be able to help you out. And at the same time, Pluto is activating this ground cross, while Mercury and Saturn are forming a quincunx as well, by the way, which is very much talking to us about that there are certain type of obstacles in our life that needs to be adjusted first, pretty much removed and discarded. A quincunx is a 150-degree of aspect, and it represents jokes, adjustments, something super frustrating. Sometimes it's a joke. Like what I mean by joke is that, I don't know what to do with it. I'm just kind of like laughing at it. So, but of course, Saturn might want you to be super committed to whatever plans you've got. Saturn in Pisces is very much about the inner knowing anyway. So we're going to have to be able to figure out, what the path forward is for us. And then somehow it is asking us to stop dreaming and having to be able to kind of like make the necessary steps towards that healing journey. So anyway, there is a lot of stuff happening on the sky right now, but I speak about those in my weekly forecast, so you can get a bit more about what is exactly happening in the sky right now. So I feel like um, I feel like with this Jupiter and Chiron square, what happens is that we badly would like to have an understanding and we want to be figuring out our meaning to life, but it sounds like too difficult, a little bit challenged, and maybe we're going to have to be able to change our personal philosophy or our belief systems, because what we think is often gets mirrored, for example, in our physical body as well. And there must be a realization of that. Maybe you have got all these big ideas, let's say, about properties and stuff like that, but at the end, you might have to be kind of like discarding them all. Or it could indicate that you stopped believing in something and you're going to have to kind of like get back to it to find your belief. So this is basically a crisis of faith as well. At the same time, your fundamental beliefs are somehow potentially like what's the word I'm looking for? Distorted a little bit. And we're going to have to be able to reset them somehow. Maybe you are scared to share your opinions, for example, or you are scared to have a vision, to dream, to have future plans. So it could even indicate a lot of worries of what is happening around us, or simply just don't understand your own vision. Um, and of course, because Chiron is retrograde right now, so this could indicate certain type of past decisions as well, which might have been quite a questionable decision. Now, this is going to cause quite a turmoil for many of us. And then we're going to have to be able to kind of like do the rectification on those, to rectify on those. And at the same time, if you want to launch something new, because that's the whole topic around Chiron in Aries anyway, at the same time, it just says reflect on it, to pause, to breathe, not to jump into something, because it requires planning basically. So we have to be reassessing our goals, our beliefs, and so forth. And also with Jupiter, watching out of what we are overdoing or overcompensating. Because that's also something super big that we've got the tendency to do so. Okay, so there is a lot more to talk about this, but I have spoken about this aspect, especially how it will be affecting each of the rising sign in my yearly forecasts. So if that's something that you want to go ahead with, then check it out on my website. Thank you very much for being here, and I will see you in my next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Through every sign and every house, a journey starts and we allow the universe so vast and true. Astro Victor, it's here for you.